Welcome back everybody to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's course we continue our preparation for the Linux Foundation Certified System Administration exam. Today's video, what we're going to talk about is how we manage user account attributes or properties. So there are a number of different properties that we can manage from within our system, and if we look once again at our Etsy password, we'll see that there are properties that are associated with a user account like the user ID, the home directory, as well as the shell prompt that is assigned to us when we log in. Now, we've talked about how to make changes to some of those in previous videos, but one of the things that we haven't talked about is, for example, when we configure our user, we're given an opportunity to provide a full name for that particular user. If we didn't do that at the time and we institute a policy that requires that we enter in full names, we can have everybody run a particular command that will add that attribute or change that user property from within the Etsy password for that specific user. And then of course the root or sudo user can use it for anybody that they want. So how might we do that? So there's a utility called chfn, which is change full name field. And all you're going to be doing here is changing the full name for your current account. You'll notice we're using it as our normal user called user. So we're just being prompted for our password so that it makes sure that when we're changing our full name user, that we're who we say we are by providing our password. So we're going to enter in a new value for our full name, and my full name is now the attribute that I'm going to provide. Now if I do a cat on Etsy password and I grep for the user, you'll see that right here my user now has the my full name associated with that particular user. You'll also notice that over here we have a particular shell prompt that is assigned to us by the administrator or by the default setup of our user on our system, which happens to be bin bash. Now there are a number of other shell prompts that we might want to use as a user that might be more familiar with the Z shell or the corn shell or dash or just plain old shell. Now, if we had sudo privileges, we could simply edit the password file and change this to whatever value that we want. In our case, we don't have access. The user is not a sudo user. But we do want to change it for ourselves, which we have the ability to do. So if we can find another shell prompt from within the bin directory, let's do an lsal star.sh, and we'll see that we have bash, dash, r bash, and the shell. Let's choose the dash prompt. So if we want to run the dash prompt, we do dash, and it puts us at a prompt that is specific to the dash prompt that we can exit out of. But if we want our default to be dash, we can do that just by doing a ch sh, which will again prompt us for a password, and it will ask for the shell prompt that we want to use. In our case, we want to use bin dash. And now if we exit out of here and we log back into that particular user account on that system, then what we should get when we log in is that single prompt right here, which, because we haven't really set anything up for the dash environment, it doesn't have anything but its current defaults. Now I can change that right back by doing a chsh, which it will then prompt me again for my password, and I can move it back to bin bash, and then all I have to do is exit out of my prompt and back in. And once I've done that, I should be back to my normal bin bash prompt. Now, of course, I can also change my password, which we've talked about in the past, just by doing a password here, which will ask me for my current password and a new password once it's done. And now we're done. So our password's now been set. Now, as a root user, however, what if I want to not only manage someone's account, but if I wanted to prevent them from logging in? So I can do that by doing an su dash and becoming my root user. So my test users, for example, say we did not want this particular user to log in, but we want to provide a message for them. So what we're going to do is we're going to give a value that tells them that they can't log in. So if we look at our Etsy password directory, we'll see that there's a number of different things: no login or bin false. Those are shell alternatives. One saying that it can't log in, and one is bin false, which will not allow login as well. So what I could do, for example, is if I want to change the shell for the test user, I could simply say bin false. Now if I exit out of here and I do an su-test user and I provide the password, I'm able to log in doing an su. But if I come over here to test user, it tells me that the connection is immediately closed to that environment because I'm restarting the process of logging in. When I'm logged into a system, I can get my default login just by doing an SU, but I won't be able to remotely log in using any application using bin false. So let's connect back up here. And once we're back in the system, okay, so now what we want to do is we want to change the shell on the test user. And in this case, let's do user sbin no login. And if we can't Etsy password, we need to make sure that we've got, yes, user sbin no login. So can I use su to test user? It tells me in this case, this account is currently not available. So by doing no login versus false, because even though I've already started a shell, I'm not allowing a login to the shell from that user. So if I'm disabling an account for somebody who hasn't already got another method to be on the system so that a shell is already started, then I can do bin false. But if there's already a shell started, bin false is not going to prevent them from doing an SU to that particular user from another account. If I just don't want the account to be able to be logged into at all, no matter whether there's a shell or another user that I can get to, then I use user sbin no login. So that's what prevents users from being able to log in. So these are attributes that we have full control of on our system. So we can change our password, we can change our shell, and we can prevent users from logging in and out to the system, as well as managing how those users, as well as providing information about the user's credentials or their full credential information inside of the user account by doing a change on the full name field. That's all there is for managing user account properties. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.